Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Collective. Today, I have the opportunity to bring to you a conversation that I had last week with an individual who I think is really on the cutting edge, on the forefront, potentially on the bleeding edge of innovation as it relates to the multifamily space. And someone who just doesn't talk about the future, they actually go out and try to create it and actually shape it. As the chairman of the Multifamily Innovation Council, he's at the helm of an executive level membership organization that drives the multifamily industry forward. But that's just the beginning. He's the founder and CEO of Nectarflow. That's nectarflow.com, a platform revolutionizing how multifamily owners, operators, and business owners incorporate AI and automation into their companies. His vision: to leverage AI as the ultimate tool for business owners, propelling them into the next era of growth and efficiency. From building a cutting-edge AI and automation platform, directing global product teams, and managing over $1.2 billion in multifamily apartment portfolios, to founding award-winning research programs and scaling companies across 13 states, his track record speaks for itself. He's here to share his journey, his insights on the future of work, and how technology can be the greatest leverage in building not just a career, but thriving in business. So buckle up for a deep dive into the intersection of real estate, technology, and the future of work. So let's welcome to the show, Patrick Antrim. Patrick, welcome to the show.
So glad to be here. And oh my goodness, you're doing so much in the media space. So always happy to do things that make sense in the missions we're serving. You know, having you on at the summit and all these years of following all the things that you're working on, it's a great honor.
Well, I appreciate that. I just think the world of you. I've known you for, I don't even know how long now. I feel like I've known you for 20 years, but I think probably more intimately in the last 5+ years, 5 plus or minus years. You sort of led in there a little bit, which I think is a great kicking off point for this discussion today. The last couple of years, you've been so gracious in inviting me to the best places to work, multifamilies, putting me on stage, helping facilitate conversations. But a couple of years ago, you teased something that I thought was incredibly interesting. It was related to AI. It was a tease. You put up some charts and graphs, and I don't know if the audience really glommed on to what that was all about. And then this past year, you teased a little more, and it was incredibly interesting. And that's what I want to talk about is Nectarflow. You've launched this thing in the world now, and I want to unpack it and I want to share it more broadly if we possibly can. But let's talk about origin story. 2 years ago, you did something. Let's start there. What were you thinking at that time, and what did you see in the marketplace?
Well, so you're speaking about the Multifamily Innovation Now AI Summit, and leading into that event, one of the things that we do differently about that experience is, even from who speaks on stage, like yourself and other owner operators, innovation council members, is getting clear about the current realities of a multifamily business, prioritizing the challenges that an organization and a leader is facing, and then ultimately understanding who has built something or who is doing something that has solved something like that challenge or priority in the organization. And so we kind of sat at that intersection of a lot of companies would come to us to introduce products and services. They have a new AI product, they have a new technology, all the way back from early days of smart home and self-guided tours. And so what happened was, in doing that, I had incredible research and customer understanding, not only running and building management companies myself, but also spending time with millions and millions of units, listening to the problems and challenges and opportunities that they wanted to see for their business. And for me, the way that I built my brand was media first, right? Telling a great story about the thing the customer I wanted to spend time with cared about. So we didn't talk about ourselves. We brought together great people, and we built a community around what you would think today would be more like a modern membership organization, right? And in doing that, we started off with some research. We kept hearing about the challenges with integrations. And because we're an innovation brand, it made sense for us to listen in and lean into more of that conversation. And because at the time, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, I think Amazon and Google and these types of companies that can truly transform capital into an industry were coming and leaving and maybe even not even participating because they can't get access to the data. And at first I thought that was the problem we were going to solve. How do you solve the integration problem? And the reality is we didn't believe a property management system could solve it individually, right? I think that those organizations are doing great things to move forward with what's happening in the market. And so at that point, we did an integrations research project, and from one email, we had a little over 1.6 million units take part in that survey. And we interviewed the PMS, we interviewed the property owner operator, and then also the vendor technology provider that relied on these API connections. And so in that process, it was loud and clear that there was a big problem to be solved here. And we were set, I believe, in a courageous position to try and bring people together and solve it differently, because there was a lot of complaining about it and its frustration. And I just wanted people to think differently about it. So first I started with the facts and the data. And if you're building something today, Nectarflow is essentially built, you're witness, what you're talking about being on stage and seeing the evolution of this is just me building in public. And involving the customer base in building something. And what I know to be true is when you allow somebody to participate at that level, they will support it more, right? Instead of just going out and building something and trying to sell it, right? So because this problem is so big to not only rent increases or rent affordability or getting yields, we had to be really thoughtful about this, right? It's not just a one product. This is a platform. And so, yeah, going back to 2022, I think it was, on stage even, we revealed the research that had already been accomplished. And so at that point, what's fascinating is, in many ways, I had a lot of these things already in play and built. What people didn't know is on stage, I actually demonstrated the product. I didn't tell them about it because we don't rush sales.
Sure.
I asked them on stage after I finished the call to action was, text me, build it. You know, do you think we should build something like this? And the reality was I was just seeking validation.
Yeah.
We had already gone down the road, right? And for me, I was personally invested in this, bootstrap, no capital, just everything, putting everything on the line, because I knew we could make businesses better and it would protect brands. It would allow innovation to flow. And, you know, we're talking about also having a society improvement here. Like if you can give the owner and operator an opportunity to access yields in other ways through innovation, then they can relieve some pressure of only getting to their yield by increasing rents. And so I thought we can get a lot of support, and the evidence in the research showed that a lot of people did want this problem solved. And so that event ended, and I had a lot of validation, and I still have screenshots of who texted me, build it, build it, build it. And my goal there was to get people to come together, okay, and not fight for market share, or like if we do this together, the industry succeeds. And when the industry succeeds, the market succeeds. And then when market succeeds, companies can then succeed. And I think people have been just too narrow about approaching the problem in terms of solutions. And we thought we could approach it differently. And we looked at other industries, from what Elon's doing to reshape markets, to what Amazon has done to create category leadership, to other brands that allowed us the roadmap to know how to bring people together. And we had already done it. We had the leaders and the problem. And so that was 2022. Then a full year goes by, and I'm paying software developers. We're getting approvals, we're getting the environments, testing. But what you have to understand is, I had so much conviction that we had the answer because I built my business this way, by using modern technology and getting them to talk together so that I can create an interesting experience for my resident, for my customer, for an event attendee, whatever that may be. But it wasn't until one of my summits created a problem that I wanted to solve, that it really opened my eyes to we've got something more than just this problem with integrations. And what that was we didn't underwrite our event around sponsorship. Attendees pay to go to the event, and we do have partners that do sponsor and want to sort of, support those companies that are building healthy organizations, and they want advanced leadership, and brands want to come along that journey, and we invite that. But we're not doing it to get money from the vendors. We're doing it to make great businesses better. And in doing that, what would happen is there was emerging brands and some really good brands that have big budgets that would not sponsor and not attend our event. And it's called suitcasing and outboarding. But what they would do is they would grab our attendee list and basically form private dinners and try and take advantage of the executive level audience that we spend a lot of money and time bringing together.
Understood.
And what would happen in how this would play out, and we know exactly who these brands are, trust me, they would, at the hotel, get a ticket, a hotel room, not sponsor, not pay for an attendee ticket, and they would come down to the lobby and sponsor a cocktail, take a photo on LinkedIn and say, we're at our event that they did. It's not a, when you put so much heart and soul into what we do to make our experiences great, it feels like you're being stolen from.
I understand.
Now, I don't believe most sales reps or brands believe that to be inappropriate, because they may not have produced their own event. They don't know what it costs to get people to leave their business, leave their family, get on an airplane and go get access to a venue. And so what I did to solve that was technology. And I looked at what software can I get for attendee badges and all these things. And the reality was I built it myself. And when I built it, we used our technology and we talked to a database that, let's say, Ticketmaster uses. And we created a QR code and then a graphic design of a ticket. And then we needed to put it in a database. And then we needed to send an email to the customer and deliver that. And then we needed to scan it at the door. And so we needed to have an app to do that. And what happened was, instead of me spending a $20,000 expense for an off-the-shelf software that does this, that every other event uses,
Right.
that looks like every other event, we're trying to differentiate and be unique and different, right? That's why there's summits, not conferences. So we built all of that on the Nectarflow platform. And actually at the summit that second year, I showed it. And what I showed was the ability of something of great value to be frictionless for the customer, protects the company, and gets the job done through solving a business problem through technology and multiple applications talking to each other, all in a workflow. And financially, it saved me $20,000. So for us, we realized that's the same thing as a self-guided tour.
Right.
And so and then it opened our eyes, and then we thought, okay, that next year we spent more time with customers, we interviewed more people. Obviously, I'm chair of the Multifamily Innovation Council, which gives me great insights into the problems, challenges, and opportunities people want to solve. And then I realized that we are not thinking big enough. The multifamily business, if you think about how technology comes to market, everybody looks at the investment. Everybody looks at the NOI, the transaction, and the deal, right? And what I believe, just running these portfolios, is if you want a great multifamily investment, you need to have a great multifamily business that oversees it. Right, Mike, you operate these companies like there's nobody better in the world. I mean, you've been on that stage accepting those awards, knowing that with a great culture, bringing the right people together, getting them working effectively together, truly is is the leading indicator to the outcome of the investment. But most point solutions are focused on the investment, the property level thing, the tool, and it's narrow. And so what we believe is a business operating system, not a property management system, right? And
Yeah.
if you think about all the things that are required in order to do a great deal and in order to achieve our business objectives, a lot of this stuff happens outside of our property management system.
That's right.
So what we aim to do is connect all these things. We can go to Microsoft, we can go to Zoom, we can go to Microsoft Teams, we can go to Slack, we can go to all those places that right now a property management system can't go. And it's not that they can't go, it just would be unproductive for everybody to go out and build 2,000 applications and API connections to these types of services. We've done all that, right? So it's really interesting because at first we thought we were solving the API problem and the integration problem. But what we did is in demonstrating this and working in public, to your point, is I had more time and I'm writing the checks for that time to get
Sure.
it right, to make sure that when the product is introduced, it doesn't land flat and it's useful for an organization. So I believe that it brings value for the point solution, the vendor technology that has a narrow CRM, let's say.
Sure.
We believe it will increase the value of that application because now that can be used in so many other places. And that development team doesn't have to build that. It's standardized, it's secured, it's in an environment that's enterprise grade and level. The property management system, where most of the source of truth is in some cases based off how decisions have been made, I believe it makes the property management system more valuable because now companies don't even have to switch between this and that to do this other tool. And it becomes sticky because now you're accessing more things in more places and you just don't even think about switching property management systems. And then for the real estate company, they may want to do very narrow, useful workflows that will never see a product being built for. It's
Yeah.
not venture capital backed. It's not going to be fundable. The addressable market isn't large enough. And there's micro software solutions that Nectarflow can come into a business and find massive productivity and financial value. And now, if you think about that, you're looking at like it's an AI, an automation data platform that can connect all these things that need to happen in a business with one single login, right? And you control who accesses it and all that stuff. So, if Mike, if I were to pull it all back, we have to look at history.
Yeah.
Things were built on PCs. We had CDs, software as enterprise on premise, on PCs, and then we went to the internet, right? And then
Right.
that's a platform. And then we went to the cloud. That's a platform.
Right.
And then we went to mobile. That's a platform. And so now we have AI as a platform. And
Yeah.
things are going to be built on this AI platform. So Nectarflow was just thoughtful enough to be ready to take advantage of what we believe to be the greatest wealth building opportunity in our lifetime. And you have to have an app, a platform to bring it all together, like the App Store, right?
Yeah.
So it's all of this has been building in public and listening together with prospective customers and our new customers. And in that process, I knew that execution was the winner here. So I've been transparent. I've been telling people what I'm going to do, who wants to get involved, who's coming with me. And the reality is, someone's got to do it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was the purpose of getting on stage, showing them, coming back the next year. Here's how it works. And in a lot of cases, it did go over their head because they have never had the opportunity to integrate their own things.
Right. That's right.
That was a
That's
long
right.
answer to your question.
No, I think it's a fantastic, you've set the stage, and I think there's so many directions we can go with this. And I think you're right. I think at the time, the going over the heads of people, it was there were no comparison points, right? There's nothing to compare what you were working on and what you were delivering to the marketplace. So, our minds are like pattern recognition. So there was nothing, there were no archives to go, oh, that looks like this or it looks like that. No, you didn't have that. So I think what I'd like to do is for the audience, for the listeners, viewers and listeners, is walk us through a real world example, because what we're talking about is something that I think will just complete. I don't necessarily like the word reimagine, but it will help people reimagine the way that they do their business, from business models like traditional hierarchies to actual real world grassroots type activities like you talk, very narrowly focused things that no one's going to build a product for. So pick something that you've worked on and just walk us through it, sort of soup to nuts.
Yeah, and there's so much here. It's almost like a series. I'll do my best here. So I think what's fascinating, if I'm a leader listening to this now, is number one, um, this is a great opportunity for humanity. This is the greatest opportunity of our life for us as individuals to truly show up and make that difference.
Yeah.
And but we've all learned how to work in a way through those platforms, PC, internet, cloud, mobile. We've learned in ways that's different from how things will proceed further, right? And so our bias to action is that work is this is how work should normally look like, right? You should have a team and this many people, and the organizational chart should be structured like this. And if you know, in innovation council meetings, I've said, like, we look back at 200 years, the greatest technological advancement of our time has been the org chart. And we just needed to organize work to get done to make life better for the customer. Now, with a real use case would be, look at why we hire people. We hire people for a couple of things. Number one, for their experience. And that experience used to be, you need a law degree or a finance degree, or you need this, or you need to be a designation or this, or you need to have experience. Could be an analyst for a real estate company. And with that experience, then what comes next is you want that individual to have a unique ability or unique personal knowledge. You know, Mike worked on these types of deals. He's led this type of organization. He's turned around this and that. You know, so you have this unique only Mike value that when you walk into an organization, it's just it's what's special about you. That's what I think people should lean into. And then the third thing is company information. And so you get people with experience that have this unique ability, right? The differentiator from all the other employees. And then you hope that that employee learns about your company, what this company is charging forward, and the values and the markets we serve, all that stuff. And then with that, you apply it to a process. Now, every company has a unique process. And because of that process requires certain tasks, right, to be done.
That's right.
And those tasks require certain skills. And then when those things are accomplished, those employees create new information, in many ways unstructured information, and PDFs and emails, and it's all over the place, unstructured. And then that's where the outcome comes in. They get the task done, and then, you know, that's how work happens. With AI, we can do all of that, and we can train narrow agents with deep expertise around a specific problem or expertise, and we can apply it to that process, and that can happen in workflows automatically. We call that on Nectarflow agents. So custom multifamily GPT agents, specifically trained with experience, with a unique value, which is we tell it that. So we provide it that in a private way, not exposing it to the large language models or anything like that. So we're talking to those that we're training it programmatically. And then we can also train it what's unique about that property, what's unique about that company, what's unique about that brand. Okay, now we have an agent. But what's now interesting is what's called agentic workflows. Now I can create another agent that supervises that agent and reviews and does reflection on the work that agent produces, which simulates how work gets done as human beings. And so our goal here is not to be completely autonomous, is to basically take an AI agent, apply it to a specific workflow, and automate 70, 80, 90% of somebody's work. So then that human with that unique ability can then review more completed work, just as they do with what happens in regular work, handing a file, let me look at it. Okay, go back, make it better. Okay, you got to make it better. It's just that iterative process. So with AI, we can help it plan things. We can use the agent to iterate things. And then ultimately, the human gets to make a decision about stuff, or the AI agent can recommend a decision, and now you have better choices.
Mhm.
So all of that happens. We do all of that for a company, by the way, right? And it is what we call an AI for you instead of an AI for everyone. In other words, you're buying software that has been built to serve everyone, not you. And so this is where Nectarflow allows you to create differentiation with your company, your brand, your portfolio by using this AI in a safe way for you. Now, your question was, give me a use case. So in a use case like that, all of that I just described is now built and deployed in your private secure environment. Now what happens? Well, we create an interface for your employees, either in an autonomous way or an automated way, to do something as simple as, let's say you are taking over a new property, which happens a lot, and you have this file of PDFs and things like that. One of those PDFs is a cable contract, right? So we can do something where we can upload that cable contract to a certain drive on OneDrive or Dropbox, Google Drive, somewhere, or just upload it to an interface that we've created. And in that upload process, we can say, send that to review. Now, normally in due diligence, you would have an employee looking at all this stuff, and sometimes these things don't even get reviewed. And if they do, you get kind of like an answer, and maybe that employee moves on to something else. But what we are able to do is take this unstructured data, which is a contract, a PDF, and apply an AI agent that is specifically trained on how to review contracts, right? And then the unique process is this company wants to know certain things. So we give a data table, a relational data table, where we can say, hey, let's take that contract, let the AI agent look for the information we need, find it, structure it, put it into this data table. And now as a leader, with a simple upload of a 2-second upload, the AI agent goes to work, works through the workflow in an agentic way, and then puts the information in a spreadsheet or an application or a table where I want it. And now I have all the information that's useful for me as an asset manager to know, like, this is how long the term of this agreement is. This is who pays for what. This is the certain language that we need in the notice periods. And by the way, now I can trigger an action to say, hey, 4 months before this contract expires, let's take a look at it, maybe do some negotiations and give notice so it doesn't automatically renew and cost me $300,000. So that is a simple thing, and it's a contract review. It could be a lease. You upload the lease to a drive, it analyzes it, the term, the expiration, the resident name, and now you merge that into a document that tells the new property residents that you're the new management company. So you're just looking for these types of workflows that can make work better for employees.
My mind is just spinning 1,000 miles an hour as it relates to just due diligence and how much time that takes and resource that it sucks out of an organization to get it done. And this is not an indictment of anybody, but you're doing that in a window of like 5 to 7 business days. And it doesn't matter how many people you put to that process, there is this sort of human error element about it. So when you get the data back, there are some times where you just make bad decisions because the data has not been reviewed in a fashion that an AI could go through and do it. Not with the intensity, right? That it can do it. I do have a question as it relates to the negotiation part. This is not to get off track here, but is it reasonable to think that AI is smart enough to help you in that negotiation? Hey, you might negotiate this avenue and you're going to get X, or this avenue and you'll get Y. Is it smart enough to make those recommendations?
You just created an idea. So when we show this to people, it's kind of like a crawl, walk, run thing. There are use cases that if you get involved with Nectarflow, immediately it can be ROI positive on the top line because it's a revenue producer, and you get them to use it and see it. AI is not something you witness. This is something we do. And just explaining it to you, you came up with an innovation, right? And so once it's in the hands of employees and they see how work gets done in this new modern way, then you will unlock innovators within your company all
Yeah.
around because of what you just said, right? I just explained something, but you're like, here's another application to it. So what we would do for that, Mike, is we'd create you an agent that is that after all this is done, the contract's organized and structured, and it's not GPT is generative pre-trained transformers, right? It's designed to make stuff up.
Right.
But the way that we're doing this is we're not making it up because we're saying, look here, look at this, and we're focusing it on company information, and we're not saying make it up. We're saying look here, and that's a really useful case because now once its job is done, this is where agentic workflow happens, where we can then create another agent that once it's done, it says, all right, you are now an attorney for telecommunications or whatever, you name it.
Sure.
And we would need to get some clarity around, I'm just thinking off the cuff here, but we need to get some clarity on what a great attorney would ask in reviewing a contract like that. And then we would say, hey, where are we exposed to this? Where could this be problematic? And all that stuff. And it'd say, give me some questions that I should ask about this contract that potentially would either minimize my risk or create some opportunity for me. And it could spit that out and put it in one of the tables. Now your asset manager has something to send to the cable provider to say, hey, what about this? Or, it's a decision in a board meeting or whatever that may be. But yeah, that's where agentic work would be. We can automate the task. We can use AI to do it, but now we can create some reflection on it. And then, and this is what happens on ChatGPT. If you notice, you type something in, it gives you 1,000 words, and you're like, whoa, too much. And so what do? You try and make it better. So you tell it, all right, focus here, do this, make it less words or whatever that is. And so that's what the agents are doing on your behalf to get better results. So that's just a small micro innovation.
So I'm thinking about this, and I imagine anybody that's listening to this, you can think about any aspect of your business, any aspect, and everything is subject to innovation as it relates to this platform, this AI platform. If I come to you and I say, Patrick, I want to sign up today, but I'm overwhelmed, like I don't know where to start because the entire landscape is available to me. What do you tell that operator? Where do you start?
It's a great question. Now, what I know about most companies is they enjoy more revenue.
Yes, we
So
all do.
we've created a system and a complete AI automated system to allow them to draw in more of their customers that they want to spend time with. And the fascinating thing about Nectarflow is most products in their industry focus on either the property or the lender or the asset manager or the maintenance, or this is something that truly can help all businesses.
Right.
So I'm all in for generating more revenue. If you can create more revenue, you can solve a problem. So to me, we start with the ability to draw in more customers, if that be at the property level, where you're reducing your advertising costs because you're creating content that customers that you want to spend time with care about, and you're drawing those in and taking off that effort from the on-site staff, and you're able to do this consistently. That makes you rent more apartments. That's the easy. At the corporate level, same thing. Brand building, investor attraction, due diligence, whatever that is, but thought leadership. You can do things that allow you to leverage AI to bring in more deal flow, more acquisitions, things that move the needle financially in the business. In doing that, that's shippable and that can be done tomorrow. You can have that in 2 days. That gives you the ability to what we call like crawl, walk, run. So if you looked at the ocean is what's possible. We're going to look over here in this cove. We're going to focus here.
Yeah.
And that allows you to get started, get people using it, and then they themselves start opening up their minds. We are on conversations right now where organizations are fighting for, we only want to know about, they're literally teams are fighting for, we can't let everybody know about this. First, we got stuff to do here. Okay. So I think that you start there. The next thing is you start looking at things like leases, resumes, things that require a lot of redundancy, pain to the organization, and we can deploy this quickly. resumes. People are hiring all the time. So we can organize that to really get the behavioral fit. We can get the good interview questions, summarization, and not making any tricky model predictions about things, just making it easier, more productive for the hiring manager so they can spend more time understanding who they're actually talking to and making them better interviewers, things like that. So HR is a very easy one. That's a lot of money being spent that can be helped. Revenue generation for vendors, for innovators, for management companies, lenders, loan officers, it doesn't matter. If you have a business, you want more customers, I would start there.
Yeah, I think, there's a big punchline in all of that, in that this is not just multifamily. This is like, I mean, maybe it's all multifamily related in some cases, but this can hit a very broad base of businesses that can interlock with one another and make more revenue or better workflows or so on and so forth. It's interesting. One thing that came to mind for me as you were saying that is it's almost like you have to think about how to apply this in a thematic fashion, right? Or in if you think about your premise being, how do I save time in the organization, and how do I take that time and apply it differently? Is that a way you might frame it or think about it?
You know, first of all, one of the things that we believe will be the differentiator and the value is you can go call McKinsey and these large organizations and spend hundreds of millions of dollars learning the strategy, right? But what's going to happen is you're going to need implementation. At some point, you're going to need to
Yeah.
bring it in. And so Nectarflow gives you the platform so that instead of just working with consultants, or if you are working with consultants, you now have something those consultants build on in a secure, modern way that you don't have to build that infrastructure. But more importantly, we have AI developers on staff, on payroll. We are building and having conversations with useful workflows and work cases and things like that. And so we're going to have a very large education-based system to support the possibilities of what's next for customers. Because a lot of times, if you don't experience this, you don't know
Yeah,
what you don't know. And
that's right.
so we have a whole, what we call like an outside innovation arm that becomes, it's almost as if you hired a CTO, a CIO, and a business orchestrator, but also have a software developer on payroll
Yeah,
for less
yeah,
than the cost of one employee, right? And so we will create those relationships where we can say, let us be the source of stability and certainty in this most uncertain time,
yeah.
right? And let's not make all these crazy promises. Let's tackle things that make your business better, more profitable, more efficient, and you then yourself experience it, and we innovate together instead of like buy this thing and get it to work this way. And so we meet people where they are, and I think we provide that organizational support system to do that. But there's a process that we go through to identify what tasks to do first, and that's unique to every company. It's unique to every company depending on their priorities.
Yeah, I would imagine that a third party property management company has a very different set of marching orders, so to speak, than an owner operator, or even somebody within the various asset types of multifamily, be it student housing or Class A and all the different variations. So, to your point, everybody's business plan is different. So, it sounds like you have an onboarding sort of methodology that helps an organization sort of do this discovery, and based on that interview, you go, okay, here are probably the three areas we need to focus on for this quarter or this year. Is that right to think?
Yeah, they're getting a platform, they're getting the strategy, and they're getting the implementation. And people can choose to work with us in different ways because some organizations may have stronger teams internally that we then help understand how these things can be done on their own, right? And there's people that are just going to want it done for them. They just don't want to see anything. They just want things working. And so that's really useful in a world where it's hard to find talent, it's hard to train people, retrain them, and then CTOs and technology people may not want to sit inside an organization that may be frustrated with change. And so we take on all that risk of making sure like things keep moving in the platform, and you're not hiring a CIO that maybe wasn't properly supported, didn't have the resources, or maybe the organization wasn't ready. They quit, and now you've got to start over and do all these other things. So I think, again, going back to the platform approach, it's our ability to, and guess what? When more companies get on board, the industry gets better and it gets more valuable as it grows. Because you think about like your landscaper being on Nectarflow. Would they be able to deliver with a routing app that tracks their drivers or automates invoicing, makes it easier for them? Would they be able to offer you landscaping at a lower cost if it was actually more efficient for them to deliver their service too, right? So I think we're at the beginning stages of really, like I said before, the greatest wealth building opportunity of our lifetime, and how people get to that process is unique to them. And I guess we just become that team to know, like, you have depth of organization without the payroll.
Yeah, so you brought something to mind that I feel like a lot of people have said this, so it's not unique to me, but my version of it is, to speak to your point about landscapers, there's sort of this windshield time, right, of getting from wherever they launch in the morning to your property. And in my head, AI, probably facilitated through a Nectarflow, could understand what traffic is like, or traffic patterns are like, or let's make it even more nuanced in that you have a technician and you have a service request that comes in, and triaging that particular thing that needs to be fixed and matching that up with the skill set of the technician, and then understanding that that technician has the inventory on its golf cart or in its truck and they happen to be close by, and all this stuff is factored in. A human couldn't do all that, right? They've got the phone ringing, they've got somebody that they're counseling, all this stuff going on. But what it sounds like is you could put that into a workflow. It benefits the vendor. It benefits the employee on site because their day is sort of routed for them, and they just show up and do the work without all the stress that comes along with that in a traditional business model.
Yeah, and these applications already exist in many cases. So it may be a maintenance supervisor that has that business idea, but with Nectarflow, now they're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And they don't need to have a developer. They don't need to have, you're right. So they can leverage the work that we've done and then also make that app more valuable because now it's connected to other things that are useful in multifamily. So I think it's going to be the type of platform that's going to receive the type of acceleration for ideas like that, where it could be deployed into a network where they can connect the data to other customers. So if you think about, a point solution needs access to data, right? Yeah. And right now, Nectarflow can connect to anything with an API. So we're on a mission right now to find those point solutions that want to get more customers, right, and connect their data to the client's information. And so we can do that through these modules. So we take on that development risk. We build an API connection for the developer. And they now have, I mean, you've seen this done in like Zapier, right? So it's Zapier for multifamily, right? So we bring that to the point solution, and now they can focus on making that product better for you, the customer. And in doing that, you may unlock entrepreneurship that we've never seen before, which means in the early days of the App Store or early days of Amazon, when Amazon was just books, nobody knew it was going to be what it is today. The platform will unlock so many great ideas because there's going to be great things that are being built on Nectarflow. We just give the first customers an obsession on how to become their own technology company, bring AI into their own business, but give them some native things that allow it to be financially one of the most profitable investments in technology they'll ever make.
Gosh, my head is going. So you always make me think. So I want to talk about data for a second, and then I want to talk about fractional work or consulting work with your platform, because I think there's a whole thing. I think those are some ideas that you've shared with me in the past, or with others, but with me. The idea of data, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember you saying something like, hey, you're in a traditional sort of PMS, your data goes into the system, And then platforms are sort of forced to extrapolate that data out in some way, shape, or form. Like if you're a new startup in a point solution, you've got to partner with the big PMS. You've got to create this conduit to get the data out. I feel like I heard you say, hey, we're going to capture that data on the front side now. And we're going to put it in a lake or a warehouse where it's structured and you can do what you want with it, versus it goes into the PMS system and you have to extrapolate it out after the fact. Is that accurate in the way I'm remembering that? And then can you talk about the value of capturing your data here instead of pulling it out of here?
Yeah, so a couple of things with this. Number one, great whiteboard discussion, which obviously I don't have a whiteboard here, but I will tell you the property management systems have been quite visionary.
Yes.
And people don't give them the credit that they deserve. And I'll tell you why. Because they've kept our businesses running for a long, long time, and they moved us through PC to cloud, internet, mobile, all that stuff. And
That's
I
right.
know I know there's been a lot of frustration around all that, and there's some fight for market shares and who's got what. And to me, I love that it's competitive and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we all need to be working together to make the real estate investment business better. And
Yeah.
because there's real money at the LP and the investor side that's counting on leaders to figure this stuff out. And so I've said, and even at the summit, I said, real estate, we see the physical world in acquisition. Okay. And if you remember my talk, I talked about what's called bilinguals.
Yes.
So we have created a lot of wealth in multifamily because we bought a lot of stuff and we built a lot of structures and we collected some rents, all in the physical world. And in doing that over the last 70 years or whatever it may be, we didn't really see ourselves as a technology company, right? And really most businesses didn't early on. But as we realize that technology is the fourth industrial revolution, it's like leverage in a real estate deal in debt.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of CEOs and financial asset managers have been so fast to get the yields and the big $140 million payoffs with only debt and flipping something to someone else, right? Or improving it and fixing it. And while they made a lot of money, they also left a lot of money on the table, but they just don't know it, right? Because they won. So success has been the biggest pain point to why we're not where we are today in having access to our own data and being able to leverage it in a way that will make the business better for the customer. And so let me give a little bit more perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I think the PMS systems they looked at the data as real estate, like oil, right?
Yeah.
And they built businesses right under the grounds of all the real estate companies, and they didn't even see it coming. So I think like the Yardi conversation is an entrepreneurial just story to be told.
Right.
Like building
Genius.
a great business, meeting customers and all that stuff, right? Keeping things solid, stable. We don't really have any problems right there, right? You have some emerging market players. You have people that have done startups and trying to get all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there's never been a Nectarflow or a central hub for anybody to really answer the problem around integrations. Okay. And so data had to be in this central place, and real estate operators directed this process. So it was the real estate companies that said, you need to integrate with my property management system. But what they should have said is, I need access to my data. By the way, this is my property management system. But what they really were saying is, I don't want to have inefficiencies and I don't want people logging into multiple things. That's really what they were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
right.
right.
They weren't saying, I want you to go get an integration with my property management system, because that's not the way it works when I build things. I mean, you subscribe to an account. They give you you pay more for that account. You give API access, and then you're able to do stuff with your data.
Right.
Right. And so Nectarflow would be able to move that wherever you want in a secure, standardized way. And it would meet the point solutions or the PMS's authentication requirements. and code requirements. That's still happening in code. And so I don't want to lose our audience here, but what I'm trying to say here is we really didn't want everything to be in the property management system. We just didn't want to have inefficiencies and have to move data from other systems. Okay. So on stage, my point was, if you can't get the data out, you can change the way the data flows. So you're paying the employees to type into a system.
Right.
So the data's going in by you. Like, it doesn't just magically appear there. So if you have a system of which you can enter data, and that data can then go wherever the heck you want. You can route it to your PMS, you can route it to your asset manager, you can route it to Tableau, you can route it to Excel, you can route it wherever you want. Nectarflow can help facilitate that. I don't know that that's really the answer today, because you need a little bit more. There are real estate operators that are orchestrating data warehouses and redundant sort of routes to where data is stored. But we believe, this is going to be kind of an aha moment. We believe, and I may get some hate for this one, but we believe we can make the property management systems more money with their APIs.
That's terrible.
Now, I'm going to tell you why that's better for the industry. It's better because, think about this: free, charge, and to keep these things secured, there's resources that need to be in place. So the fees probably, regardless of how they are, there needs to be resources to protect data. If the property management system, and we would build the API to their documentation the same way that they give it to a developer and say, this is how you have to connect and write code, we would do that in a way that they could see the data, queue the data, have error reporting. It would be in a more secure environment that would be more scalable. So we build the documentation, and then the property management system, if I'm building a property management system today, I'm going to give the real estate company an upgrade, a tier higher. And by the way, if you want to pay a little bit more, and it's incrementally not much, then you can have access to your own API. And that API with Nectarflow would be, you'd be able to access your own data, and a new vendor comes along and you could do what you need to do. Now, the reason why that's important is because there are more real estate companies than there are vendors.
Yes, that's right.
So that's how they make more in their APIs.
Sense.
Okay. The problem today isn't that demand isn't there yet, because there's not been a tool to do something with your API. So
that's right.
If I've got the API, we can do whatever we need to do with it, and securely, more securely than it's happening now, because everything is happening in code base. Okay, we didn't get into multi-model with AI and stuff, because that's a problem if you're building things in code. You have technical debt, something changes, you got to go fix that stuff. So we can provide more efficiency to the property management system. We can provide more standardization. We can provide API access that they can see and view and trust. That's similar to how it's done in Codebase. And then we can give the real estate company the ability to do something useful with that connection. Like, every time there's a new employee hired, maybe that employee needs a new account login for their property management system or their CRM. And so now we can do that. We can provision a new user or whatever that may be. So we're in the early days of pulling all this together, but the platform never existed to do it. Now it does with Nectarflow.
Yeah, I recall seeing it. Let's say it was, I don't know, 9 to 12 months removed from the very first time that you introduced it. And it was fascinating to me. You said, tell me something. And I think we talked about onboarding an employee. And I think you took it to a marketing employee. And you put this thing into the system. And it literally spit out business cards, the welcome letter, all the sort of marketing shots, even sent the order to Blitz. I'll just use Benson as an example because it comes to mind readily. In order to Benson to send all the swag and all this stuff. And it literally, I think we were on the phone for half an hour, and maybe it was like a 5-minute little, after we talked about it, it was like a 5-minute little production in the system. It went
Yeah.
done.
And
That was just,
you were a victim of me sending you a text. I'm like, hey, let me show you something,
yes,
and early days of
just
that. And
awesome.
what's interesting is how do API connections get handled today? Through developers. Okay.
Yeah,
How does, and things get handled from a real estate operator. Sometimes they give it to IT or they give it to their technical team, which is very small in comparison to the needs of the organization.
right.
And I mentioned dual um, or bilinguals, which is you need to know real estate, how deals get done, JV, raising capital, debt, equity, all that stuff. But you also need to know technology. If you're building an investment, you need to know what's happening in the world and what the future looks like. Otherwise, how do you make predictions about anything?
Yeah.
And so a great leader can bring real estate and technology together to make the business better, more efficient, more profitable. And so what you talked about there was early days of me texting you saying, hey, watch this, and me just validating and kind of getting more close to building things. But what's fascinating, what you keyed into there is that the people doing the work, making the work more efficient instead of some programmer that's not touring apartments or reviewing assets or doing the due diligence or dropping in on situations, is now, to your point about fractional subject matter experts paired with AI, paired with our platform, completely unstoppable in their ability to walk into an organization, make that organization better, and then, in comparison to like a McKinsey or these companies are going to charge you millions and millions of dollars. So that is where the future is. All these VPs and subject matter experts that have deep domain knowledge can bring all of this together into an organization because they know how work gets done.
It's interesting to me. There's something that is a real and true in fact in the multifamily industry, and there are a lot of graybeards like myself that, let's say, in the next five years plus minus, are going to be exiting the industry and going to leave this leadership gap, right? But I imagine guys like me, speaking for myself here, I'm not going to completely walk away from the industry. I'm going to do something to contribute back to the industry that's given so much to me. What I hear you saying is, hey, Mike, you can work on a fractional basis. You can use all the subject matter expertise that I've developed over 30 years, marry it up with a Nectarflow. I can walk into a company and say, hey, here are 10 things, like low-hanging fruit. It gives a whole new definition to low-hanging fruit, but here are the 10 things that we can use Nectarflow for to produce incredible outcomes and even modest outcomes that are going to sort of compound to make incredible outcomes for your company. Now, let's put a little bow on that for a second. I want to talk about something, and I know we're coming up on an hour, so I want to be respectful of your time. Elon Musk
I can
is
talk all day on this stuff, as you know.
I know. We're gonna have like we're gonna do a Joe Rogan
What's the
3 hour.
longest episode? Can we do the longest one ever? Like, that'll be our
we,
next.
we totally can. Yeah, I think my longest one is Stephen Ray and I talked for an hour and 33 minutes one time. So uh, anyway, so Elon Musk, I read his giant book that Walter Isaacson wrote. He talked in there about Elon was frustrated because designers and engineers do not speak the same language. So his solution to that was he took designers and engineers and he sat them right next to each other, right on the manufacturing floor, and they were forced to work out real problems like you're talking about, right? This bilingual thing. And where I'm going with that is that someone might look at Nectarflow and think, okay, that's going to sit in IT. It's a tech thing. Let's just sit it in IT. And I think to your point, or at least what I took away from something that you said there was sometimes things it's not an indictment of IT. It's certainly not, but it's a small fraction of the organization, and the guys are excited about it, or the gals are excited about IT, but they don't understand business application. How do you advise organizations? Look, it's not that you don't sit in IT, but make sure you've got people sitting on that factory floor together, beating each other up and making the business better.
Yeah, I think it's involving them, kind of like how I involved you, is like people want to be included in the process. Like I said before, that when you involve people, they'll support the thing that you build when they're involved in the process. Right. And it doesn't mean you're going to listen to everything and do everything. You may listen to everything, but you may not do everything that that they want done. But, because most people have this sort of bias about their perspective of the world and how work should be done and the problems even. And that's with like your Elon using first principles thinking, I think is very valuable in working through that process, because it gets the ego out of the way and it just gets to what's really necessary. Because sometimes we'll optimize things that shouldn't even exist because people have been told to work a process because somebody had a problem, created a policy for that problem. That was their solution. So now someone's working a process because at some point in time, there's a problem. And that problem may not be here today. And so first principles thinking flushes through that in a very fundamental way. I can give you the 5 stages real quick. It's number 1,
Yes.
question all the assumptions about it, right? Like, what does it take to actually move somebody into an apartment? You need a credit score, a lease, an application. Maybe you need a website, you need a leasing agent, you need a phone, you need a sign, you need a property, you need appliances. You can list out all the components. And then you look on number 2, you look at, well, let's look at what's entirely not necessary in this process, right? So you're eliminating everything that's not entirely necessary in the process. And then number 3, you're optimizing those things, because now you're only optimizing things you're not optimizing things that shouldn't exist, right? You're optimizing things that have already been eliminated because they're entirely necessary. Right? That's the 3rd step. And then he calls the 4th step acceleration. So the acceleration is like, go faster when you have removed the things that are not necessarily necessary and that they have been then optimized to make better for the organization, and then accelerate. Right? And then you can automate, right? So most people work backwards in this process and they just want to go faster, but they're making the business more complicated because they're going faster with something that may not even be necessary. So that's a great way, a thinking process to work through change in an organization. And it's going to test assumptions, and people will fight to hold on to what they're familiar with. So it's a little bit of it's a process, but be patient through that process. And then these podcasts and things like that we're doing are useful in that as well. So I think it's just the leadership. It's not a technology solution moving forward. It's a leadership solution moving forward for those leaders that can provide that source of stability, point to the direction that they want to go, allow fail-safe environments, give people the room to fail, learn, pivot, come back, do it better, and because then they end up feeling more significant and more valuable, and that they were involved in that process.
Yeah, I think you're so spot on, and I think this is a kind of a nice sort of end cap for our conversation, despite the fact that we could talk for 3 hours or more. You've done so much work in the multifamily space, at least from my perspective. So let's call it one guy's opinion. You're talking about culture there, right? And really, it's incumbent upon leaders to create a culture where you can make things like innovation happen. You have this wonderful event in December. It's sort of a co-branded event, but Best Places to Work Multifamily, where you send surveys out into the world sometime in the month of July or August. You collect a bunch of data, you stack rank companies that are doing innovative things, and you celebrate them at that event, which I think is wonderful. Marrying that up with the Multifamily Innovation Council, which I'm a member of, and every Friday we get together, and I got to tell you, it is. I literally many times have been just spellbound by the speakers, that is the members of the Multifamily Innovation Council, in addition to the people that you bring to the stage sometime to do presentations, and the way you facilitate it, always leaving room for people to feel uncomfortable in their silence, but motivate them to speak about things. And this year you're tacking on the AI piece of that. I say all that to say this. I think that your contributions to the multifamily space over a very long bit of time have just been amazing and wonderful. And I think more people need to dial into that. Just again, one guy's opinion. Where can people find you? Anything else you want to say about those 3 things, or any other thing before we wrap up here, Patrick?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's really nice of you to say that. Very highly respectful of your brand and your efforts and your contributions over the years, going back to our days where we were just tweeting with each other. The Multifamily Innovation and AI Summit is essentially our annual event where the public can go, executives, those that care about and believe that AI is in our future. And so we're bringing together technology and leadership together, right? And it's less of the what it is in a trade show and things like that. It's more about how do you build a modern company and bring people together along that to create healthy environments where you can protect investments, create wealth, all that stuff. What we realize is that over the years, things move so fast, you can't wait a year to go to an event. So that event is sort of like the bonus World Series thing for us. But like you mentioned, every Friday we're chairing the Innovation Council. So we're meeting with owners and operators and bringing together like what are the problems they want to solve, and then bringing in speakers to help solve them, or technology. We have great innovation council partners that are coming in there providing some perspective. And so that is really the speed that our industry is at today. And if you think about like our trade associations, you have like NMHC, which does a great job, and you have NAA, who's done it 90 some years. These companies have been doing so many great things, but we're forming essentially like a modern membership organization that really truly supports the individual, not necessarily the company, right? Because people move companies, move change, and we know that technology moves fast and it needs a dedicated, focused, centered action on these things. And you just can't we'll do 52 events this year, right? And a lot of people don't look at that. It's probably a private podcast if you want to look at that, because we do record those things. So that is core to the media and the moat and the thing that we have built around that. Nectarflow is just sort of the products and services that allow this industry to truly innovate. And we've given them the platform for that industry to be part of. And everybody's invited to that. So we believe we'll be funding investors, or not investors, but funding entrepreneurs to build really cool things on Nectarflow. So we're not competing with our point solutions. We're bringing them together, right? And we're trying to bring them customers. And we evolve into, I think, something that people can, you've seen Salesforce do some things, bringing people together. You've seen what Steve Jobs did with the App Store, right? You're seeing now an AI platform being formed, and this just seems natural to bring people together along this journey. But I think the takeaway from all this is that everybody has a seat at that table now. You don't need to wait to get started. And I think that it's an abundance of, it's abundance itself. It's not anymore us against them and ego and all of this stuff. I mean, the world is changing. It's an opportunity for us to be more in humanity and enlighten each other as they build and take risk and fight around solving problems that are hard and telling and improving a brand story for the multifamily industry, because we've kind of failed at that and we're seeing regulation come in. So, I mean, all of those things together, I would never have designed. I'm just listening to people and bringing them together. And now we have a platform that can help people create and take advantage of what, again, I'll say is what I believe to be the greatest wealth opportunity of our lifetime, which is AI, automation, data, and leadership.
I believe that is true. Patrick, where can people find out more information about Nectarflow and or you specifically and what you're thinking about and working on these days?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Mike. Nectarflow.com is the website. You can go there, you can talk to an automation expert, get in touch with us, jump on a demo, all of that stuff. We have a podcast around that, which is the Unstoppable Business Growth Podcast, and we're going to be talking about those types of things, taking advantage of this, what we believe to be, again, the single most valuable wealth generational opportunity of our lifetime. And then LinkedIn is great. I'm on LinkedIn. Patrick Antrim on LinkedIn is a great way as well. And a lot of people follow us at our events and things like that. But we always enjoy meeting new people and seeing what's possible next for multifamily.
Patrick, I I kid you not, I always walk away from conversations with you just with my mind running 1,000 miles an hour, and I always appreciate it. But thank you for investing some time with the Multifamily Collective, with me specifically, selfishly speaking. And I look forward to having a follow-up conversation as people start to develop things, you start to build more things, and this thing starts to really take off, which I think it will. I just look forward to those future conversations.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for the time, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yep. For everyone else, we'll see you next time.